Bugatti didn't think that we were going to be able to separate this car in half.
Can't do that in a garage. There's just a few places in the world with the right equipment to be able to do that.
And put it back together.
Looking good, looking good.
But we managed to do both of them, and on top of that, we managed to get it even started.
Matt Armstrong, what the fuck you at, man? We got to complete the Bugatti, man. We got $3 million sitting here. Actually, I know why. You got your own Bugatti and you're fixing it, and big congratulations to you. Honestly, it was quite impressive to see how you fixed that car without me. I thought my skills of, removing 2 screws on the bumper and holding the flashlight while you were splitting the car apart was quite the asset to the rebuilding of this car. So congratulations, you found someone else to do that on your Bugatti. I'm not mad about it. But yeah, I know we're on a mission right now, waiting for some headlights to be repaired. We got something really cool planned out with the body kit. So I'm very excited for you to come back very soon, help us finish the build. And I got my matching purple Drift Miata right here. And yeah, for now, don't worry, I'm keeping her safe. She's waiting for you.
This is the most famous Bugatti Chiron in the world, not because of its colour, not because of its owner, but because this single car exposed what many believe is one of the biggest secrets in the hypercar industry. Through this crashed Chiron, a billion-dollar manufacturer found itself accused of using repair bills, maintenance costs, and parts pricing to extract eye-watering amounts of money from customers. We're talking figures so high that they could buy a house in parts of the UK, a luxury sedan in the United States, or fund years of living expenses for the average person. But then things escalated. The car was allegedly blacklisted. The VIN was locked. Legal threats entered the conversation. And just when it looked like this battle couldn't get any stranger, something unexpected happened in the Bugatti Chiron rebuild saga. After months of fighting Bugatti for parts, pushing through endless roadblocks and proving that this crashed Chiron could actually be rebuilt, Alex suddenly appeared in a video speaking directly to Bugatti CEO Mate Rimac. At first glance, it sounded like he was finally ready to surrender. "I might have to write a letter of apology," he joked. But that's where the clip takes a complete turn. Because the moment viewers thought Alex was about to beg Bugatti for help, he immediately followed it up with something that completely changed the meaning of the entire video. "I would never apologize." And that single sentence tells you everything you need to know about where this rebuild stands today. Before we go any further, let's play Alex's video so you can hear it for yourself.
Matt Rimac, I might have to write a letter of an apology for you to help us out with these fucking headlights. This has been a little bit of a mission, but listen up. We have fully disassembled, definitely not me, but they have fully disassembled the combobulator off of the headlight and all the components. The differential is separated from the cover, and the transmission of the headlight over here is still broken, but we are working on the other one. I think this side or something like that. But Matt Rimac, if you need a letter of an apology so we can get the headlights, I would never fucking apologize. We're gonna get these fucking headlights with or without you.
Okay, and to understand why Alex would even joke about apologizing, you need to go back to the beginning of this saga. Back to when a $6 million hypercar crashed into a Japanese mini truck barely worth $4,000, and the insurance company decided it would cost $1.7 million to fix. Back to when Bugatti locked the VIN, blacklisted the car, and made it impossible for any dealership on the planet to sell a single part for this vehicle. Back to when Alex posted his now infamous 24-hour ultimatum: either lift the blacklist, or we 3D print everything. In Bugatti CEO Mate Rimac, the actual CEO of a billion-dollar brand, personally responded to an Instagram post. That plan worked out brilliantly. Because locking the VN didn't stop the rebuild. Refusing to sell parts didn't stop the rebuild. Telling the world that the car was structurally compromised and impossible to salvage didn't stop the rebuild. Armstrong split the gearbox. His team welded a component that was literally engineered to break. They sourced airbags from an Audi A3. They built custom radiators from scratch. They fired the engine. They drove the car. They did everything Bugatti said couldn't be done, with none of the tools Bugatti said you needed. And now here's Alex in front of a camera, joking about writing Mate Rimac a letter of apology, which raises a much bigger question. Why is he even bringing Rimac up at all right now? What happened in the background that made this the right moment to address it publicly? Because this video didn't come from nowhere. Alex doesn't just film himself talking to Bugatti's CEO for no reason. Something triggered it. And the most interesting theory isn't the most obvious one. There's a school of thought forming in the comments section, and honestly in wider automotive circles, that Bugatti may have quietly softened their position on this build. That the parts blacklist that seemed so ironclad a few months ago may not be quite as locked as it once was. That after millions of views, global media coverage, and the spectacle of watching an independent team do the supposedly impossible over and over again, the pressure may have started to move the needle. Now let's be clear, nobody has confirmed this on the record. Nobody from Bugatti has issued a statement saying the blacklist has been lifted. But here's what we do know. The narrative has shifted. The tone from Bugatti's side has changed. In the fact that Alex felt comfortable enough to make a sarcastic joke directly aimed at Rimac suggests the dynamic between these two sides is not what it was 6 months ago. Because this changes everything. Think about it from Bugatti's perspective. You are one of the most prestigious automotive brands in the history of the automobile. You build 60 cars. 60. And one of them crashes, gets salvaged, ends up on YouTube, and now hundreds of millions of people are watching a guy in Miami rebuild it without you. Every time your brand said something couldn't be done, it got done on camera within the next 3 videos. Every obstacle became content. Every refusal became a new chapter in a story that millions of people are completely obsessed with. Apparently, we're now living in a world where you need permission to fix your own car. And the longer Bugatti held that position, the worse it looked. Because the rebuild wasn't falling apart, it was progressing, the car was driving. And the question people started asking in the comments, on Reddit, on every automotive forum you can find, stopped being whether the rebuild would succeed. It became something much more uncomfortable for Bugatti. Did this manufacturer actually want this car to fail? Did they expect it to collapse under the weight of its own complexity, so that Alex would eventually come to them, hat in hand, and ship it to Molsheim? If that was the plan, so much for ownership. Because here's the thing nobody from Bugatti's PR team seems to want to engage with. Alex bought that car. He bought it back from the insurance company. He owns the title. He owns the VIN. He paid for the vehicle. And yet for a significant portion of this rebuild, he could not buy a factory part for something that was legally, financially, and physically his. That's not a safety policy. That's control. Alex himself said it on the record. This was about control, not safety. But this is where the story takes another turn. Because right to repair isn't some abstract Silicon Valley debate about iPhones anymore. It's now a $6 million Bugatti Chiron sitting in a garage in Miami. It's now a story that car enthusiasts, lawyers, policy advocates, and people who have never cared about hypercars in their lives are all paying attention to.